Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for joining us today, whether you are at home viewing or here at MLK Library. My name is Chanel Toms. I'm the Library Support Coordinator here at the beautifully reimagined MLK Library, where we host events that inspire and provide access to services that encourage a lifetime of learning to people of all ages and backgrounds. I hope you all are having a wonderful day, and we are so happy to have you here tonight. I invite you to return in the future to check out a book or join us for a workshop. To learn more about future programs and services, please visit our website at dclibrary.org. Today, we're honored to have an author talk with style expert George Worrell to discuss his newest book, Dyed in Wool, a pictorial narrative highlighting the influence his family had on his style and the background of his style career. Joining Mr. George Roero, we will have Arthur Amelia Ferreira. Amelia and George are both appointed commissioners on the DC Commission of Fashion and Art Events. If you would like to purchase the book Dyed in Wool, Mr. Worrell will be signing copies after the author talk. Without further delay, I would like to introduce Mr. George Worrell. Thank you.
How are you?
Hey, how are you?
Thank you so much. This is a pleasure to be here. Thank you for everyone for showing up and this wonderful, wonderful library. I grew up in Atlantic City, New Jersey, and libraries were just essential to what Saturdays were for me to read and, you know, do all of those things. And so I'm very privileged and happy that you all are having me here today. My compadre is walking in as we speak. She's a commissioner on the Fashion Council with me. And I'd like to introduce and present the person who will be interviewing me, Commissioner Amelia Ferrara.
As many Italians would say, I'm about on time. I'm very sorry. I apologize, everyone. We had a bit of a miscommunication, but we are here.
We're here.
I am here. Thank you so much for inviting me. Just
Thank
want to
you.
make sure, is this helpful? Should I see if I should use that? So, George, I actually visited this library for the first time a few weeks ago.
Ah,
And I came to just sort of explore and see where we were going to be.
okay.
And what I realized when I walked right in the front door, pretty much,
Hmm.
was that the art when you first walk in
Yeah,
reminded me. Oh,
push it up.
fantastic. The art when we first walk in, it's a mural that sort of takes a slow gaze at a certain period in time when people were really tight knit in their community and when they had certain people that they could look to in order to help them tell their own story
Yeah.
of who they are.
Yeah.
And I actually had Dyed in Wool in my bag that day. I had it with me, and I was starting to flip through Dyed in Wool, your book, looking at this beautiful mural in the lobby, and I thought, thank you so much for assembling these photos and for writing this book and for telling your story of how important it was for you to grow up in Black America. Thank you for allowing us to celebrate with you your 25th year of sobriety. I'm very grateful that you're sharing that with us. And so I just wanted to ask you, why a book? Why is this particular story for you necessary in the pages of a book, and how did reading impact your childhood?
Yeah. And we were just talking about that before you arrived. I grew up in a small town in Atlantic City, New Jersey, and there was not much to do. You went to the beach and you went to church and you went to the library. And the library was about 4 blocks away from my house. and a block away from the beach.
Mm.
So on Saturdays, that's what I went, was to the beach. I mean, to the beach, yes, and to the library. And you could check out books, and it was a place that you could just kind of dream and think. I'm an only child. So there was lots of time to think and to dream and to do all of these things. I didn't start out thinking that this was going to be a book.
Okay.
I had all of these pictures during the pandemic. And as you know, at that time, there was only things to do. We could go to the market, and that's about it. And I was going to take them all out and put them in a book just to distribute to my family. And a friend of ours, Anna, said that she thought that there was a larger story here. And when I started thinking, what I was seeing in the media, and still do to a certain extent, is that Oprah, Jay-Z, some rapper, or death and destruction. I was not seeing the middle, what I grew up with. Like, my parents were not rich, but they did well. My father worked 2 jobs until I was out of college. My mother worked. We had a fruitful life. There was lots of family around. We went to the South for the summer. You know, I was with my grandparents. I had lots of cousins. My father is from a family of 16. My mother's from a family of 6. So being an only child, I really wasn't an only child because my cousins and family and friends would come by. So that was kind of the catalyst to start.
I love your story in the book about you talked about the ritual on Sundays, and you talked about for you there was always church, and that was always a positive experience for you. It was part of your journey of self-discovery and self-pride. But there were also moments, you know, in the process of going to church where you were like ready for the outfits and ready to see what people would step out in, not necessarily from a studious point of view, but from the point of view of the fact of realizing that people really took a lot of pride in themselves, and the way that they would make those decisions revealed that. And then I also loved in the book your story about how then after church you would go to your grandparents' house, and all the friends, all the family would come and gather around, and they would be in their finest. And I just wanted to ask you, how did you allow that experience in childhood and seeing the people that you loved value their self-worth? How did you allow that to shape how you use fashion today, and how you use fashion to build your own self-love and self-confidence?
Well, it was really funny because you saw all of these things, and I'm sure many of you here growing up, you saw those special occasions like Easter or Christmas when your parents were dressed up or they were going out. Well, Atlantic City was very socially active, and everything was in our community. I did a book signing at the Atlantic City Library about 2 weeks ago, and it was my high school class reunion. So I was fortunate enough to have my parents there and high school friends, and
Oh my gosh,
some of them brought their parents.
that's
And
so emotional.
yeah, and but they were talking about how it was to live in this small town, but everything was there. We didn't have to leave Atlantic City, the island, to do anything. Our shops were there, our grocery stores, family and friends, everything was done within that community, and everything circled itself around church. But looking at that, I don't think I realized it until I was an adult about how privileged I was to have all of that around me. And, you know, as I say, 26 years of sobriety, it took me a while to really kind of know that the things that my parents were, the foundation that they laid, I came back to. And that the my way of looking at fashion is a little different than some of my contemporaries, because I look at it from the inside out. I just remember in the heights of alcoholism and addiction, walking down H Street. And at the end of H and 8th, there's a Murray's, there used to be a Murray Steakhouse, I think, and it had glass on the side of the building. And I was walking down that street and I thought I was dressed, wearing Ralph Lauren. And I looked at myself in the mirror and I didn't recognize myself. And I knew then that there was a real problem. And I think maybe a couple of weeks after that, I went into rehab. But that's the premise of what I feel about fashion. It was like I had on designer things and I had nice clothes, and but the inside, there was something that was missing. So it didn't matter about what I had on the outside, it was on the inside first. So then, I took that with how I look at fashion and how I work with my clients. I see women and men who can afford $10,000 dresses or whatever, but if your skin is not correct, or you're humped over, or the inside is all of these things going on that are negative, we're not going to see that $10,000 dress. We're going to see what's wrong. We're going to see that we're not going to see what you want us to see. The end result is that it should be the hair, skin, nails, teeth, the clothes afterwards. You may not think that you want a new dress. You may want to get books, or you may want to have your family room redone. It's all personal. So the trends and those kinds of things, I don't really kind of get into, like when we're doing things like that. I'm more interested in how you are going to approach what you're going to do. Because when you're walking in to that interview with that new dress or new suit or whatever, if you're not standing straight or have confidence, and it's not, you've wasted your money. But that's my opinion. Yeah.
I can tell that is a particular point of view that took time to form, because as you were saying, you were walking in Ralph Lauren, and that was at a different age. And you say in the book that you had a really happy childhood.
Yeah.
And I wanted, if I may, to highlight a little bit of your work with children, especially actually your work in the youth with in DC. And so I know that you have been honored to speak at Career Development Day at various local schools, including Anacostia High School, Yeshiva University, and DC Incarcerated Youth. I know you serve as a board member of the Harlem Justice Center, and that you've hosted DC Marion Barry Summer Youth Employment Program, MBSYEB, which highlights workforce development and career preparation. And I think, as someone who is also an only child, and also born and raised in DC, I kind of wanted to know two things. First, what is inspiring you from young people in this city now, this generation? Maybe their fashion, maybe more than their fashion. And what would you say to those of them that maybe feel that they are not growing up in the type of supportive community that you felt very lucky that you had growing up?
I feel like this will be our 6th year working with the Marion Barry Summer Youth Program, and we do, it's called Style Your Career. The young people, we have 14 to 16-year-olds, they have their own minds. I just don't remember having my own mind at that age. They pretty much know what they want to do, and I guess with the social media age, that they're able to tap into things that I was not able to tap into, and that there's a willingness, if you get their interest, especially with fashion. I think a lot of times when we use the word fashion, many people think that it's just the clothing. It's so much more. It's so much. It's writing, it's thinking, it's development, it's behind. It's not a fashion show. It's so many other things. And putting in that work ethic, I think, enhances what we're able to tell them. And for the most part, our students excel, and we're able to help place them. And many times you think you want to do something, and this is as an adult, and you start doing it, and then you're like, I don't know if that's the path that I want to go. So
yeah, I've been there.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think that mentorship that they go through, especially in that particular program, it's obviously so much more than fashion. It's really, vocationally, what am I here to do? And I actually, in another interview, remember you mentioning that as a stylist in particular, you are particularly, you've done all kinds of styling projects, but you're particularly proud of your work in styling workwear and styling professionals. And you told me a story at Goodwood, I believe,
Mhm.
about working as a host at a restaurant and downtown DC. I want to bring that story back, but the question is, we've seen lenses on Washingtonian professional style go from Jackie Kennedy's pink suit, the TV shows where we're sort of seeing, this sort of sheath tight dress for women on the Hill,
Mhm.
and we've sort of developed what Washingtonian style is, both around the Capitol and other parts of the city.
Mhm.
So why is styling professionals such a passion of yours? What do you see before and after when you're working with people and you are teaching them how to dress for their work?
Yeah.
And what has styling yourself for all the different phases of your work in your life taught you?
Well, it came easily because I'm in Washington,
Mhm.
so that was my client base, and I quickly learned that you're dressing for the office. You're not dressing for you, and you should have more looks in your closet. To go to work, wherever you're going, you should have a look for that. I always say that I think that Nancy Pelosi does it so well
I know.
because
Where is she tonight?
she's she's very
Get her
well
out here.
she's very well tailored,
Yeah.
but you would almost have to be in the fashion industry or really know clothes to know it. So it doesn't take away from the message. So it's a fine line if you're able to do that. Um, I try to do that as much as possible to keep you comfortable and not put you in something that is stylish or trendy or this is what's happening and then you're not comfortable in it. Because if you're not comfortable in what you're wearing, you've lost half the game. Um, so yeah, going along that, but also too incorporating how I felt about the inner, the passion. So if you're running for office or you're running a corporate office, that should be your passion, and you should be happy and feel good in what you're wearing. Yeah.
I never know the brands Nancy Pelosi is wearing. I just notice how hard she's working.
One thing that I saw, and I think it made the papers, she had a red Valentino coat on, it was collarless. And it's maybe like the third time she wore it, but she wore it to New York and it got more play like all over the country. But that's the only time somebody has noticed what she wore. And my friend of 30 years is sitting in the front row. She's nodding. So she's telling yeah.
We I mean, there's all different people that we have sort of phases that we look to
Mhm.
when we're trying to adjust dressing in a way that's as authentic to ourselves as possible. But one of the things that I've observed about not just dressing in Washington or styling, but I think also workwear in particular, is this fine line that you're walking between wanting to express who you are on the inside, things about your identity, things about where you grew up, a pattern or a color or a texture that's representative of a certain culture.
Mhm.
But at the same time, and this is a dichotomy that Roland Barthes brings up in the fashion system, we always are dressing in a way that's somehow masking,
Mm.
hiding, providing a crutch, giving us something that we don't have. I might be really interested in feeling as confident as possible on a particular day, and I might reach for a leather jacket. So I just wanted to know, in your season of life now, are you more interested in one approach over the other, or how is your philosophy now? How would you say, what's your take on that?
For clients or
For yourself.
for me, for me, it's comfortability, the things that I feel. So I did something today that I always suggest that people not do is the day of an event, go buy something. And I have things in my closet and I just did not feel comfortable to wear. And I went out today and I did that. I was lucky. I was almost at the end of it. I was just like, well, I'm just gonna have to wear something out of my closet. And I found something just before I was leaving. But I'm 59, so the pleasing and the acceptability, all of those things are on the back burner. I don't think about those things. I think about if I can give someone coming behind me young, someone restarting, someone that has a dream that really doesn't know how to implement it in the fashion industry, branding or event planning. If I can do that, that is what I'm seeing for myself, and hopefully we all are going forward, because my time is winding down. Meaning, yes, I'm going to be there and do things, but I think at a certain point, we all should be able to say, all right, this is the point where I have to start reaching back and saying, okay, come on this journey. Let's do this. Do you know how to do that? Because when I first started, nobody told me anything, nothing. I learned by mistake. And in most ways, that was the best way for me to learn. But the finances about it, starting your own business is it's something innate. Do I want to go out and kill for my food, or do I want it brought to me every 2 weeks? I want to go kill for it. I want to kill. Yeah.
You did tell me once that in your career development, as you were honing, the skills that you were going to, do for the rest of your life, that no was one of the best things you could hear, because it did not waste your time.
Yeah.
And I thought that was particularly empowering for me personally. And what's also empowering is that I think you don't just style your clients in terms of what you think would be flattering for them, but you also give them an education on how they're making a choice. And you mentioned the financials of it. And I wanted to ask specifically, what are the values that you try to teach your clients to look for in a company when they're making a purchase? Because it's not just aesthetically or understanding what's flattering to their coloring or their shape and whatnot. It's also, companies are making statements with the choices that they're making, and they're making hard decisions, or in some cases, easy decisions. And I'm curious to know, not just in how you are choosing for your clients, but also how you're choosing for yourself. What are the values in a company today, particularly fashion or beauty brand, that you're looking for?
So there were two things that I learned. One from a client that I had. We would go to Sac Chandel, which is on Wisconsin Avenue. They're closed now. But we would go there and they would have like a rack of clothes for her. And we would be there 3 hours and she would leave with maybe 2 items, would drive me nuts. But she chose carefully. She wanted to know the value, where she was going to wear it, how long she was going to have it, where she was going to wear it. All of those things were decision factors for her about that. And then when I lived in New York for 8 years and I worked at Saks as a personal shopper, I found that Americans were the least educated on what they wanted to buy. Everybody else from other countries would come in, they would have their size, the designer, everything. It was very hard to sell them anything. If you didn't have it, they would move on. Americans, I found, they would buy all of these things and bring it back. And I think if retail would kind of turn it around and say, let's start educating our consumers, let's start educating the people who are shopping and not just trying to force and sell and talk about trends and colors and all of those things, maybe people would keep a lot of the things that they have. To your point, you still should shop for the things that make you comfortable. Wherever you go, you should be able to fit in, hopefully naturally. For me, when I've tried to work a 9 to 5 and sit in an office, it just was not for me. Now, I could have made and I have made a lot of money, but it just was not for me. I'd rather make less and do what my passion is. And, my grandmother used to say, it's not how much you make, it's what you do with what you make. So that's my philosophy.
Thank you. I'm learning a lot tonight. You have an acronym that you share in your book, and it's kind of like a motto that you live by.
Yeah.
It's HELP, HELP, health, energy, longevity, and productivity. So I have some rapid fire questions for you. What is one unhealthy habit that you're trying to kick? What are some tools that you use all the time to stay organized? What gives you energy, especially in the morning, the beginning of the day? And lastly, what is the purpose for you for living a long life? Why?
Okay.
Why longevity?
So you're gonna have to tell me that.
But
each
in the
time.
beginning, okay.
Yeah. So
Healthy
what was the first one?
Unhealthy habit you're trying to kick.
Fried chicken wings.
I'm sharing that.
Yeah. I fried about 15 last week, and I have a nutritionist now, and I'm saying, with the book tour, like I need more energy, and she's like, you got to change your diet. Everybody in my family and life has changed their diet. My parents are from the South, so I eat Southern food. They eat none of that now. They eat very healthy. I'm the last holdout. So yes, chicken wings.
Okay. Tools or tricks that help you stay organized because you are very busy.
It's gut for me. Like I write things down, but my mind is geared to know when it's time to do something or to check something. It's in my gut time. Like I'll know, like,
Mhm.
okay, it's time to call that person, or I haven't heard from that person. But I do write everything down. Everything now is in my phone. I used to write it on pads,
Hmm.
but I write it on my phone.
Yeah, you have a
Yeah.
good internal body clock.
I do.
Clearly, unlike me.
Yeah.
And why? What is giving you energy, especially at the beginning of the day?
The first thing that came to mind is that I'm able to pay my bills. But uh, but doing what I love. There is nothing more rewarding than doing what you love. I know for me, doing what I love each and every day. And, I say each year, I'm not going to do that this year, or, those kids, oh, I'm not doing it. Each year, I'm looking forward to it. So I've found what my passions, and I'm still searching uh, what they are and just doing them because somewhere along the line, I heard TD Jakes say uh, that your gifts will take care of you. And there should be more than two things that you do. One to two, three to four things that you can kind of pick out of your box. If one doesn't work, something else works. If that doesn't work, go back, or all at one time. So if it's $20 here, $40 here, 100, it all adds up. Very simple for me. Yeah.
Well, you shared a little bit of your passions with us, and I want to have a chance to open it up so we can all talk together. I'm just going to ask you two last questions. What is coming up next for you? What should we be aware of, or what is cooking that you can give us some kind of hints of? And then my second question is, I know towards the end of the book, you do say that you have a passion for paying it forward and volunteering. And I was just curious how you're spending your volunteering time now, or if there are any nonprofits that you want to highlight or fundraisers you want to bring to our attention tonight.
Um, being on a national platform, because for me, the best enhancements have came from things like this. Something someone said to me. Someone at Bergdorf's long ago, he was a stylist, and I brought a client there, and he was the director of personal shopping. And he said, "You have the eye." And that was everything for me, because having the eye to mean that I can go out and purchase and do things, like, because nobody tells you. It's, you know I'm not a sugarcoater. It gets hard if it's just you, and you believe your vision, you believe your dream. Sometimes it's just you. There were many times it was just me. So, and coming from a loving family, sometimes people have to see you do stuff. Somebody else validate it, and then people come. So I have to have, and that's still today, have to have that drive to get up. And the people that you have around you, the people that you have around you, your circle should be extremely small for success. If you have a whole lot of people around you and everybody's picking, and there's always going to be problems because many things that happen are not for the public. There were many times that I lived in New York where I was thinking, you know, I moved to New York when I was 50. And I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? And this is before I got a job at Saks. I moved there for my brand, all those, I had rent to pay, food, all these kinds of things. And there were days that I had to say, do I pay my phone bill and so that it'll keep my website on in case somebody needs to call me or do something, or do I buy food for the week? Those are decisions that one makes. I can't put that on Facebook. I don't put that on Instagram. It all looks lovely and cute, but there's some decisions that you have to make for your dream. So paying it forward, there's not one charity, but I walk throughout the neighborhood. I'm in Southeast, I'm in Northeast, I'm in Northwest. There was two young men that were standing on 14th and P, and they were selling, they had started a small business. I forgot what it was. And they were handing out cards and stuff like that. And I stopped and I told them how happy I was to see them doing something so positive. Their hustle, because people used to think hustle was a bad word. Hustle is a great word. We should all have a hustle. And I made a contribution, gave them my card, and that's for me. That's my charity. Wherever I am, because I'm all over the city. I'm in New York. I stop and talk to people and anybody. That's my charity.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, audience, what do we want to ask George? I've been indulged. I'm very grateful. I do have more questions though, so I can keep going.
I first want to say thank you so much, all of you, everyone that I see here. Thank you so much for coming. Oh my goodness. Thank you. Mm, mm, mm,
And that's one of the most comforting things about his book. I mean, immediately you just feel like you're in his living room and it's just so intimate and you feel like you can see. I mean, you actually put in multiple pictures of different people from your family. So I
mhm.
was like, oh my gosh, I really know her personality now.
Yeah. And neighbors, because
Yeah.
it wasn't just the family, it was our neighbors that we grew up. Like my parents went out, like they would go out to these functions. Like, we had the cotillion, and my friend Mimi is here. We all grew up, Jamie, her cousin, we all grew up. And we had all of these Jack and Jill, all of these. It kept us busy. I just don't think there's enough for young people to do. I don't. I mean, there was so much for us to do growing up. There were so many things. It was almost too much. You know what I mean? Like, so you didn't have any free time. There was no free time. My parents kept me extremely busy. And after I got a certain age, I was working. McDonald's, wherever, delicatessen, because I'm from New Jersey, the delicatessen. Yeah. Someone else? Yes, sir. Sure. Mm, 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 Well, suggestions and pitch, because I pitched my program. I pitched my program for about 2 years before they did it. It's government. So if you understand government, you know. I was just lucky enough to know, have some contacts, but um, I pitched it and it worked. But once that door is open, you have to be able to produce. Do you know, like, because I'm constantly tweaking uh, my program because it's based when the kids come, they think it's just fashion, but it's resume building, writing, all of these things. If you can't write a letter, if you can't send an email, you can't produce a fashion show. So there are things that come before that. Um, so yeah, just pitch. When something's good, it'll draw the right attention. Yeah. I think it has changed, and I think the pandemic has helped that. I think definitely in the past 10 years, it's changed. More for me, I want to see more people of color as designers and their brands in stores. I think we have people who are not of color making decisions for people of color about what they wear, what they, you know, look like, all of those things. So I think once we change that dynamic, then the rest will change. And it's really hard. I mean, like I said, I was in New York for 8 years and I was at Saks. And there was a shirt that an African designer who was from Paris made, right? He designed it. Someone else bought the copyright for that, or trademark. Is it copyright? Trademark. We have some lawyers here. Is it copyright? Yeah. And he sold it for much of nothing. They sold it to Saks, and those T-shirts sold for $550, and we never could keep enough of them. So it's education, and that's what we were talking about when people talk about fashion and putting together any type of company, accountant, a lawyer, business, contracts, all of that stuff comes way before your designs. Because if you don't know what you're doing, or someone's going to come in, or it's just really hard. So before, for me, from my thinking, before we think about, I think Washington is a conservative city, but it's very fashion forward. We have young people who, especially in Southeast, that are coming out, they're designing T-shirts. I did DC Incarcerated Youth. Those young men are making T-shirts. They're very on about fashion. It's just the opportunity. Yeah.
And as a follow-up question to that gentleman's second question, and I heard in his question also the question, will DC be on par or a peer to a fashion city like New York, LA, Japan? And I'm just wondering, do you see the sustainable fashion movement, or the theme of sustainability as something that might bring the DC fashion community together? Because I know we have a lot of activists in our city, and that's one of the things, the passion of the people in our government, and not just in government, but just in activism in general, seems to be activating the sustainable fashion community. Do you see the theme of sustainability or sustainable fashion playing a role in DC's fashion community?
I'm hoping, and we're commissioners on the Fashion Council. So, we talk about that all the time. Um, I still think it comes down to finance and people having access to funding. I
Yeah.
went out shopping today, people were purchasing,
Yeah.
but I don't know. let's hope so.
Yeah.
Once the pandemic ceases, I think a little bit. But like I said, today I was out. There were a lot of people out purchasing a lot of things. So, in the back. Hmm. 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 From my perspective, it's slow, and I agree with you. You see it on, you turn the pages. I think I'm looking at Ebony because it's so many people of color in the magazines. But when I go to the shops in City Center, um, I see people of color, or at a certain point they're selling, they're not making the decisions, they're not the regionals, they're not the buyers, they're not the directors. That's what I'm talking about. Like, so, and I hope that's what you're saying, is that I don't see that, not here, and I didn't see it in New York either. It's just a level of people making decisions for everybody, and the open door was the magazines. Like, we see black models, or we see Asian models, or we see, you know, Africans, and but not in America. Like the head of Vogue, it's still Anna Winter. It's, you know, yeah.
And Diana Vreeland used to be my favorite
Yeah.
editor of a magazine ever, and it is very much Edward Enninful now.
Mhm.
And I do think that I agree with you that there's a big difference between holding a magazine in your hand and seeing some things demonstrated that are inspiring versus actually going on an interview and sitting down in that chair with your knees buckling and taking a look around the room and not seeing people that look like you, because it's not just the work that gets printed. It's about how that work was made and the values of the people that were allowed to make those decisions. And that's not, it's not just a matter of power, it's a matter of community. So I agree with you. I think there's a lot more work to be done, and I hope Washington is one of the cities that shows that there's just immense talent that's ready.
But I don't think, if it doesn't happen in Washington, it's not going to happen anywhere, because we, here everything starts in Washington, the laws, all those kinds of things. And I think because, historically, um, uh, the color line was 80%, African American at one point, and now I think it's 37%. But still, aside from the percentage, I just think we have that right. Men, women, black, gay, straight, every, you have that right, if you have that dream, if you have that talent, for it to be shown, and it shouldn't be so hard. Do you know what I mean? Am I dead? Am I dead? No.
Very much not.
Like,
Very much not dead.
Does somebody know something? No. No, I know. Yeah.
To tell your story.
Mhm.
Hmm.
I mean,
It's a hard
I'm
question.
thinking that anyone that has crossed my path, that I told them something that helped them, that I said something, called somebody, wrote something that helped you help make it easier for your journey or your dream, because it's rough when you're the only person. I keep going back to that because I didn't come from dreamers. I came from people. Well, yeah, I did, but not the kind of dreams that I had. I didn't see it around me. My parents worked 9 to 5, and to give a better life for themselves and for me. It was, you go to school, you get a job, you work it, and that's it. There was no such thing as, hey, I think I want to, make clothes, or I want to, dress women or dress men. I think now, looking back, my parents were like, maybe we should have encouraged him to do that. But I guess I'm baffled too, because my aunt, my mother's oldest sister, was in retail. Absolutely amazing woman that worked at this dress shop. Only African American woman in this really couture exclusive shop in Atlantic City. And she would come down the staircase with all of these wonderful clothes in the late 60s, with the hair and just coiffed and amazing. And as five, my mom and I would go there and visit her. And I'm 59. I remember that just like it was yesterday. My father had a brother who was a tailor, and then his other brother was a cobbler. So my father would send him his shoes every summer, and he would sew. So I don't understand why they didn't think that the fashion piece would just be inside. I think they were looking at other things, but there's no rule book. But I think my journey brought me, I don't regret anything. I don't want to live anything over or try to do anything different. Where I'm at, how it took to get here, I'm happy.
If I had to, oh, hi, Marissa.
Hmm. It was about 2 years. It took me 2 years. I stopped. I looked in the drawer, and my grandparents and my mother and my father had given me. I had all of these old. I had great love for photographs and photography. I have a drawer full of pictures, and I was just looking through them, and I thought, why don't I just kind of put these together? It was slow process, and I was just gonna do the Google, like you can send your pictures there and they'll make a book. And I went to Goodwood on U Street, and one of the owners, Anna, said, I told her what I was going to do, and she said, I think there's a greater story, because just what I talked about, what we were seeing, the people in the middle, we were in the middle, not rich, not poor. And she says, I think there's a story here. And I started writing from my memories of just growing up, watching Soul Train on Saturday at noon. My mother would go to the hairdresser. We went to church. It was just certain things that you did that I was not seeing. And that's what I wrote. But like I said, I did put it down for a while, and I hired an assistant, and I got a great editor. My first editor for my first book was my friend of 30 years, but she's very busy these days running a restaurant. But I had a great editor and somebody that could, what I put match my mind, what I wanted to convey. So it was really fascinating for me. Yeah.
Well, the book writing process is different for everyone. And yeah, and here we are in this cathedral of amazing stories, and I'm so thrilled that yours is for all of us now, for all time. And in speaking of all time, and Marissa, I did not at all mean to cut you off. I didn't see your hand out of the corner of my eye, but when the topic of legacy came up, I just wanted to share that as someone still at the beginning of her career who looks up to you so much, that I think there's a phrase in your book that stuck out to me the most, which was about honing your gifts. And what you said was that it's not about what talent you're born with, it's about what you choose to do with it. And that is, I think, something that is going to touch people, not just because they're changing their careers, not just because of what age they are, not just because they've had one too many Uber Eats deliveries in the pandemic, not because they've been sheltering in place for so long. It's because, I think when you talk about honing your gifts, you're talking about the journey that you had to take that eye that someone recognized in you at Bergdorf's and refine and expand and self-educate and figure out how to do this and figure out how to do that. And you just soared with that. And I think honing your gifts is so much, cultivating that, harvesting that is so much more important than just looking at it and saying, oh, I guess that was good.
Yeah.
I mean, because that's what a waste, right? What a waste.
So in wrapping this up, thank you so much. This was amazing. I have just a quick story. When I first started styling, because it's a political town, a friend of mine said to go to a fundraiser, political fundraiser. And she said, don't focus on the candidate, focus on his wife. I said, okay. So I went, and the woman, his wife came, and she says, oh my God, you're so stylish. Are you are you a stylist? And I look, I said, yes, I am. How can I help you? And we had lunch, and I remember bringing her things that totally did not fit her, totally did not go with what she was looking for. I was honing it then. I was honing that skill that was inside that I had no clue I had, no clue, and got it hopefully right somewhere along the line. But it's chance and opportunity. But thank you so much all for coming. I'm going to sign some books. If you have them already, if you want to purchase, I'll chart. We can take pictures, whatever. We're here till 7:30. But thank you so much.
Thank you all for coming. Again, my name is Chanel Toms. I'm the library support coordinator here. I organized this event. I'm so happy you guys were able to come, and it was a great conversation. So we're going to start the book selling, and he's going to sign some books. So you can go and visit the table over here with his assistant, Casey, and she'll be helping you guys with the books if you would like to purchase. Thank you so much for coming.